Our aim in this video is to say a little more about the end of Daniel chapter 9, and then we will move into Daniel chapter 10. So have your Bible ready, the last part of Daniel chapter 9, and then into Daniel chapter 10. In the last part of chapter 9, look please at verses 24 through 27. We brought this up briefly in the previous video. 70 weeks. My present understanding of the 70 weeks. First, there's nothing in these 4 verses that I see that confirms the various claims about knowing when the world will end. The key elements of those agendas are not in this passage. No rapture, nothing about Jesus setting up an earthly kingdom and reigning here for 1,000 years. Nothing here that offers a time when we can know the world will end. The key elements of those sensational religious doctrines are just not in these 4 verses. May I also point out the literal chronological interpretation would not work because that would just get a little over a year. The events contained here require more than a little over a year. Also, chronological formulas offered by numerologists run into a number of speed bumps, as those are mostly arbitrary. My conclusion is this is symbolic, not literal in the number of weeks, but there are real events described here. I believe Homer Haley was right in his commentary on Daniel when he said, "So the 70 weeks that begin with Cyrus and the return of the Babylonian captives to Jerusalem ended with the complete destruction of the nation, a city, and the temple. But these would be supplanted by a far greater spiritual kingdom, people, sacrifices, and covenant. In the new order, the things of the old shall be forgotten, and we, of course, are members of the Lord's new covenant body, the kingdom of Christ." In other words, the Jewish captives would return to Jerusalem under the Cyrus decree, but going forward there would be trouble, and as the kingdom of Christ was established, the Jewish nation would fall into decline and come to an end at 70 AD. The word is desolation, which is how Jesus described their end in Matthew chapter 24. So you may have a different conclusion about the 70 weeks, but that's my understanding at the present time. Daniel chapter 10. Let's go through Daniel chapter 10. Just a walk through of Daniel chapter 10. I'll start at verse 1. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a word was revealed to Daniel, who was named Belteshazzar, and the word was true, and it was a great conflict, and he understood the word and had understanding of the vision. So this time reference puts us at about 535 BC. And remember, Cyrus was the one who was prompted by God to decree that the temple in Jerusalem would be rebuilt and the Jews who wished could return to their homeland for this purpose. Cyrus released the Jewish people, fulfilling what is written in 2 Chronicles 36, verses 22 through 23. Cyrus is mentioned several times in the Old Testament, including here in Daniel and in Ezra. 2 things are said about this vision. It was true, and it involved a great conflict. And as this vision unfolded, and as we read the written account in Daniel chapter 10, Daniel reports what he saw, how he saw this, what he heard, but he also tells us how this made him feel. I'm going to read now from verse 2 through verse 21 in Daniel chapter 10. In those days, I, Daniel, was mourning for 3 weeks. I ate no delicacies, no meat or wine entered my mouth, nor did I anoint myself at all for the full 3 weeks. On the 24th day of the first month, as I was standing on the bank of the great river, that is the Tigris, I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, a man clothed in fine linen, with a belt of fine gold from Uphaz around his waist. His body was like beryl, his face like the appearance of lightning, his eyes like flaming torches, his arms and legs like the gleam of burnished bronze, and the sound of his words like the sound of a multitude. And I, Daniel, alone saw the vision. For the men who were with me did not see the vision, but a great trembling fell upon them, and they fell to hide themselves. So I was left alone and saw this great vision, and no strength was left in me. My radiant appearance was fearfully changed, and I retained no strength. Then I heard the sound of his words, and as I heard the sound of his words, I fell on my face in deep sleep with my face to the ground. And behold, a hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees. And he said to me, O Daniel, man greatly loved, understand the words that I speak to you, and stand upright, for now I have been sent to you. And when he had spoken this word to me, I stood up trembling. Then he said to me, Fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that you set your heart to understand and humbled yourself before your God, your words have been heard. I have come because of your words. The prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. But Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me. For I was left there with the kings of Persia, and came to make you understand what is to happen to your people in the latter days. For the vision is for days yet to come. When he had spoken to me according to these words, I turned my face toward the ground and was mute. And behold, one in the likeness of the children of man touched my lips. Then I opened my mouth and spoke. I said to him who stood before me, O my Lord, by reason of the vision, pains have come upon me, and I retain no strength. How can my Lord's servant talk with my Lord? For now no strength remains in me, and no breath is left in me. Again, one having the appearance of a man touched me and strengthened me. And he said, O man greatly loved, fear not, peace be with you, be strong and of good courage. And as he spoke to me, I was strengthened, and said, Let my Lord speak, for you have strengthened me. Then he said, Do you know why I have come to you? But now I will return to fight against the prince of Persia. And when I go out, behold, the prince of Greece will come. But I will tell you what is inscribed in the book of truth. There is none who contends by my side against these, except Michael, your prince. So that's Daniel chapter 10. Whatever elements of mystery we may discover in the text, or whatever might be difficult for us, there are some basic components that are clear. A vision that was true and that conveyed a great conflict. According to verse 14, this conflict involved Daniel's people, the Jews. As this was seen and heard and felt by Daniel, he was mourning, fasting, and weak. But as the vision ended, he was told to fear not. Verse 19 gave Daniel comfort. O man greatly loved, fear not, peace be with you. Be strong and of good courage. Now, there's another component of this vision that's intriguing. The prince of Persia, Michael, and the prince of Greece are engaged in conflict that seems to be behind the scenes. So that unseen conflict is paused long enough for this man clothed in linen to reach out to Daniel to tell him to not be afraid. After giving Daniel encouragement, the man clothed in fine linen, verse 20 said, Now I will return to fight against the prince of Persia. So the vision in chapter 10 is therefore unlike the other dreams and visions involving Daniel. An unseen battle in the heavenly places is put on pause long enough for the man in fine linen to give Daniel some words of encouragement. This also tells us where Daniel was on the bank of the great river, that is the Tigris. So that's Daniel chapter 10. Fascinating, intriguing. Before we dig a little deeper, though, I want us to pause for a moment and think about how Daniel, in times of mourning and distress and maybe some confusion, was comforted by God. God is the God of all comfort. May I offer these observations of a practical nature. Sometimes God puts us in position to learn patience and obedience by the things we suffer. We go through what might be called what seems to us to be a tightrope. And what we can do in that situation is to check our balance. I've said many times what I understand about human nature, that when we suffer, we want that suffering to stop immediately. When we are waiting for something, we want that wait to be short. But God does things in His time. Ecclesiastes 3:11, God has made everything beautiful in its time. I think we can see in the case of Joseph and Daniel and in the case of Jesus and Paul, maturing requires some time and pressure, some age. If we want everything immediately and we get everything immediately, we miss an important dimension of opportunity to grow character and patience. Daniel had to wait for 21 days until things were settled between Michael and the prince of Persia. And at the end of this part of the vision, Daniel was a man of peace. When we mourn and suffer, we need to pray and wait patiently for God. God is faithful. If Daniel got sick and speechless at times, we should not be surprised if there are times when we are disturbed by conflict or perceived conflict. What's the answer? Be strong and courageous. I believe the glorious one who appeared to Daniel was Christ. When I compare Daniel 10, 5 through 6 to Revelation 1, 12 through 17, it strikes me as no coincidence that these are the same. So in Daniel's narrative here, this was a pre-incarnate appearance of the eternal Son. I have, and you have, some interest in what might be going on behind the scenes, but we can't know all that. What we can know is what we ought to do. Continue to go through struggles, wearing the whole armor of God, resisting the devil, and being strong and courageous, believing that God is in control. Daniel chapter 10. Thank you